A young man falls through the snow crust into a cave and realizes that he won't be able to get out, meaning that this is where the end will find him. But then a flying vehicle hovers above him, and out steps his friend Timo, who is surprised that Mickey is still alive. Timo descends into the cave, but his rope only reaches halfway. So Timo, taking Mickey's weapon, climbs back up, expressing sympathy for his friend. In the end, however, nothing terrible happens, because Mickey will be printed again tomorrow anyway. Before leaving, Timo asks the question that has long bothered him: what does it feel like to die? And he asks for the number of the current identity. Mickey reminds him, as he departs, that he's already the 17th and prepares for death. Before long, a massive alien beast emerges from the darkness, in whose jaws Mickey is about to meet his end. The scene shifts to a laboratory where Mickey's body is printed on a huge printer after each of his deaths. Dr. Dorothy continually updates his experiences and memories, loading them into his brain each time. This technology is so far ahead of its time that its very existence has sparked much controversy. Therefore, it was permitted only in space, where Mickey happens to be. He is sent to the most dangerous places. He is exposed to extremely high doses of radiation so that scientists can study all the symptoms and find possible treatments. Most importantly, they want to figure out how much time he has left before he dies. Mickey removes his glove to show what's happening to his skin, and his hand snaps off and flies past the spaceship window, where everyone is occupied with their own tasks and pays no attention to the man's demise. He is printed yet again, and Mickey immediately checks his hand, which turns out to be intact. But Dorothy quickly disappoints him. This version of Mickey will only live for 10 minutes. However, he takes it calmly. Mickey could have gotten rich through life insurance, but the problem is that disposables aren't insured. They have no labor unions or pension benefits. People take these jobs out of desperation or ignorance, which in his case coincided. The thing is, he and Timo decided to open a little macaron shop for which they borrowed a large sum of money from a tough individual. But the business failed, and they ended up facing their creditor. He vividly demonstrated what happens to those who don't repay their debts by sawing some poor fellow in half with an electric saw right before their eyes. The guys were warned that if needed, they'd be found at the ends of the earth, so they decided to leave the planet. Moreover, a new interstellar expedition was being formed at that very moment. The truth is, many people wanted to fly to the icy planet Niflheim. They had only one chance left, since it was the last spaceship. The expedition is organized by Kenneth Marshall, a failed politician who opens a volunteer recruitment center. Having lost the election on Earth, he decides to build a new empire beyond the stars, and his supporters generously fund this idea. Fanatics from among ordinary voters are prepared to follow him anywhere, even to an icy planet, and they're willing to do any kind of work. Mickey Barnes is also ready to take any job just to leave Earth and agrees to the position of a disposable, which greatly surprises the female recruiter. He deceives her by saying he's read all the requirements, while in reality not having the slightest idea what he's signing up for. Mickey has no diplomas, no qualifications, no other useful skills, unlike Timo, who manages to get hired as a pilot. But the sound of the electric saw keeps echoing in Mickey's head, erasing all doubts. He is met by a woman, Specialist Gemma, who immediately announces that his work will be very dangerous and leads him to a laboratory with a huge printer for printing humans. At this point, Mickey could have realized just how terrible the job ahead would be, but he was captivated by the smell of Gemma's hair and barely listened to her words. She explains that the huge tank below is called the cycler. All organic waste goes into it, from rotten eggs to human remains. Everything is cleaned and recycled, eventually becoming another body printed by the machine. 20 hours after his death, a new Mickey will emerge from that tube. Gemma asks him to change clothes and lays him in a machine to scan his body, which will be recreated as needed over and over again. After that, Gemma downloads his memory, calling it a personality backup. Mickey will have to undergo this procedure once a week, so there won't be significant gaps in his memory when he's brought back. In the past, storing a personality required a hard drive the size of an industrial refrigerator, but now it's enough to have storage the size of a brick. However, this procedure dredges up memories he had long forgotten. When he was little, he and his mother were driving home from the supermarket. Mickey noticed a red button on the car's dashboard and pressed it. His mother lost control and was killed. And now Mickey, remembering this, is sobbing bitterly in the laboratory, which Gemma notices. But instead of offering sympathy, the woman reminds him of the last requirement for a disposable: to press a gun to his head and pull the trigger, because now his job is to die and he must get used to it. From this day on, Mickey 1 begins his journey to the planet Niflheim. The flight proceeds normally, and people have only one form of entertainment: going to the dining hall. But there too, every piece of food is accounted for and every calorie is counted. It is there that Mickey first starts thinking about what he's done by agreeing to this flight. A multitude of people quietly consume their meals when Kenneth Marshall and his wife Ilfa appear. Their enthusiastic followers greet them, while Mickey suddenly notices a woman named Nasha. She also notices him and invites him to her table. The two young people immediately take a liking to each other. During this time, the politician talks about the upcoming expedition and the need to save calories, urging people toward restraint. He promises they will have a real baby boom once they arrive on Niflheim to populate the entire planet. However, Mickey and Nasha aren't waiting for arrival. They love and live here and now. For all 4 years, the woman helps Mickey, supporting him through his numerous deaths, for which he is very grateful to her. Nasha herself is a universal agent, simultaneously performing the functions of a police officer, soldier, and firefighter. Mickey tries to help her because just outside the door he encounters mysterious individuals who only have one question for him: what is it like to die? Nasha has to remind these persistent dimwits that their ship is an ark of good, friendly neighbors who should help each other in every way. One day, 2 more female agents join Mickey at his table, and Kaya starts paying attention to him, which of course Nasha doesn't like. She makes it very clear that Mickey belongs to her alone. Mickey himself continues to do his job, dying and being recreated in the printer. Upon arriving on the new planet, he is the first to descend onto the frozen surface. Following the order of the expedition's chief scientist, Arkady, he removes his helmet to inhale the air and become infected with whatever viruses and bacteria inhabit Niflheim, dying once again. It turns out there are many viruses, and each time the scientists invent a vaccine for one strain, they can do nothing against another, causing Mickey to die over and over. They keep printing him to test brand new dangers on him. Finally, the day comes when Mickey number 17 stays alive, having received a vaccine against all the viruses that live on the planet. This becomes his gift to humanity, which can now safely go outside and breathe the air of another world without using protective masks. One day, he joins a group of agents on an expedition to study the surrounding area. And in an icy cave, the people discover unknown creatures. One of the women, frightened by the scary-looking aliens, opens fire, hitting the icy ceiling, which collapses and buries the poor woman under massive blocks of ice. An enraged Marshall blames Mickey for what happened, gives these new creatures a name, the Creepers, and orders the Disposable to capture one of them. Mickey has to set out into the icy desert, where he soon falls into a cave. Timo doesn't even try to rescue his friend because they'll just print him again anyway. He takes Mickey's weapon and flies back to base, leaving Mickey to await a horrifying death in the Creeper's jaws. Mickey prepares for the end when a terrifyingly large creature appears before him, surrounded by equally frightening little ones. Mickey prays only for death to come quickly and blacks out from fear. However, when he comes to, he realizes that the Creepers are dragging him somewhere. Mickey decides that he's going to be food for the babies, which will only delay his death, and he's upset by that. Unexpectedly for the human, though, the Creepers don't kill him. They drag him to the cave's exit and help him get outside. Mickey even feels offended, assuming that they're rejecting him because his flesh has been recreated many times. He shouts to the Creepers that he's perfectly edible, but the creatures seem to be escorting him away. He responds by trying to imitate the sounds they make. Soon a transport vehicle drives by. Mickey clings to the rear platform and reaches the base, where he's greeted with surprise. Tired and freezing, he goes straight to his room and lies down on his bed, where he unexpectedly discovers himself. The two Mickeys jump up and stare at each other in horror. It turns out that upon hearing of his death from Timo, the scientists immediately switched on the printer and printed Mickey number 18, turning the men into multiplets. Mickey 18 attacks his predecessor, intending to kill him, yelling that he was printed only 2 hours ago and hasn't even had time to live. But Mickey 17 refuses to accept this and remembers what multiplets are. It turns out that some years ago, when this technology first appeared on Earth, one of the printer's developers, Alan Manikov, printed his own double without the corporation's permission so he could pursue his dark urges and become a serial killer. After all, when one Manikov committed a crime, the other would play with children and have a rock-solid alibi. When everything came to light, the police arrested both men. But while lawyers were deciding how to punish the pair, another crime occurred. It became evident there was also a third Manikov. The case drew a great deal of public attention and unanimous condemnation. One of the journalists covering the trial gave the duplicates the name multiplets. It was then, speaking in Congress, that Marshall declared, "Multiplicity is the work of Satan," and asked permission to use human printing on a new planet where it was impossible to deliver the necessary number of colonists right away. He was the one who coined the term disposables and called for multiplets to be destroyed if they appeared. Recalling all this, Mickey 17 comes to his senses and realizes his double is taking him to the cycler to burn his remains there. Now he understands Nasha's words that each version of him had its own personality and differed from the other Mickeys. Apparently, the 18th turned out to be the harshest, but when the 18th is already preparing to dump his prototype into the cycler, Mickey 17 suddenly offers his copy a way to share their lives. The 18th can work and live on even days, and he himself on odd ones. And Mickey 17 admits that now he is afraid to die, because before he had been sure he would be resurrected, but now that might not happen. At that moment, Timo comes in with one of the workers, to whom he is secretly selling substances banned on the ship. Mickey 18 is furious with Timo. If he hadn't abandoned 17 in the cave, this mishap wouldn't have happened, and he suggests killing the traitor, but 17 objects. Nevertheless, the multiplet attacks Timo and throws him into the cycler. However, Timo manages to grab the edge and dangles over the furnace, begging for help. The 18th presses a glowing hot rod against Timo's forehead, intending to shove him into the fire when Nasha and her boss Zeke arrive. Mickey 18 is forced to pull Timo out after giving him a severe scare. Nasha takes Mickey 18 to his cabin, while 17 hides and watches them from a distance. He's outraged to hear how Nasha flirts with the new Mickey, but he can't do anything about it. Just then, someone hands him an invitation to dinner with Marshall, which he somehow won. Mickey goes to the leader's dining hall, where they seat him at a table and offer him some newly developed synthetic meat drizzled with sauce, Ilfa's latest obsession. Soon, Kaya joins the group. Marshall declares that she is perfect for colonizing the new planet, which greatly offends the young woman, who believes she can do much more than just serve as an incubator for future children. Pulling herself together, she suggests they pray for their colleague who died in the cave. Suddenly, Mickey 17 has a violent reaction. His neck grows red from an allergy to the artificial meat. Arkady rushes in and admits that the meat has not yet been fully studied, and this reaction could be fatal. He proposes giving Mickey the same experimental injection, but it doesn't help. Marshall, viewing Mickey solely as expendable, prepares to kill him with a shot to the head. But Kaya intervenes, opposing such a drastic measure. And while she and Marshall argue, Mickey 17 comes around. Kaya leads him to her room. A brief spark of attraction flares between them, and they're about to kiss. But when she asks whether his relationship with Nasha is open, Mickey flees to his cabin where he finds Mickey 18 and Nasha. The woman, however, is not at all frightened by the duplicate and even suggests they spend time together, all three. But just then, Kaya walks in. Seeing the multiplets, she leaves, intending to report this serious violation to Marshall. Nasha runs after her, planning to convince Kaya to keep quiet. Meanwhile, the two Mickeys who remain in the cabin watch a show on TV organized by Marshall, where he displays a stone from the surface of the new planet on which he intends to carve the names of all the first settlers. Kaya suggests that Nasha share the men and give her one of the Mickeys. Meanwhile, Mickey 18, having learned what happened at dinner, can't contain his anger. After lashing out at his overly soft duplicate, he grabs a gun and runs to Marshall. At the same time, an outraged Nasha reminds Kaya that both Mickeys are one and the same person who belongs to her alone. She's interrupted by Mickey 17, who asks the women to help save his copy. In the hall, Marshall is slicing through a stone with a laser, showing off its properties and opening sealed passages where baby creepers were hiding. Seeing one of them, the people panic, and Mickey 18 fires at Marshall, but misses, only grazing his cheek. Mickey 17 rushes to catch the creeper, while Mickey 18 raises his gun again. But Nasha and Mickey 17 grab him, and Kaya disarms him. Enraged, Marshall orders them to open fire, and the body of a second creeper that emerged from inside the stone is riddled with bullets. The first one emits a piercing squeak that its kin immediately respond to. Realizing there are now two Mickeys, Marshall orders the arrest of the multiplets. Locked in jail cells, Nasha and the two Mickeys discuss their fate. They realize there will be no mercy. Suddenly, Mickey 17 remembers that the creepers had no intention of killing him, but instead saved him, leading Nasha to suspect the creatures might be intelligent. But then Timo and his helper come to the prison. It turns out Timo has received a threatening letter from their mutual creditor and must now cut Mickey into countless pieces and send a video report of the execution back to Earth, or else he himself will be killed. Unlike the disposable Mickey, Timo won't be reprinted. Timo orders his accomplice to finish off Mickey 17. Unexpectedly, Mickey 18 offers himself up instead. He's far more daring and will fight back, which should please the creditor, who will be thrilled to triumph over such a victim. Timo agrees, but when his accomplice approaches the cell, Mickey 18 grabs him, snatches the stun gun, and knocks Timo out, then takes the keys and frees himself and Nasha. The woman prepares to cut Timo apart when Zeke arrives. Nasha tells him everything Mickey told her about the creepers. Zeke, looking at Nasha, recalls times when she helped him pass quietly from this world and then greeted the new Mickey, loving all his versions. Zeke leads the prisoners to Marshall, and they see a huge number of creepers surrounding the station. They learn the creatures came right after the baby creeper was killed. Dorothy catches up with them and tries to speak to Mickey-17 in the creeper language, and he answers her, though he doesn't understand what he's saying. They're brought to the command center, where Ilfa cuts off the baby creeper's tail to create yet another sauce. The baby cries out, and this agitates its kin even more. Then Marshall appears and sears Mickey-18's cheek with a scorching rod so he can distinguish the multiplets from each other. He declares he will first destroy their memories and then throw them into the cycler. Nasha tries to convince the commander that Mickey-18 was saving him from the creeper, and she explains the potential intelligence of the planet's inhabitants. If that's confirmed, Marshall's actions would be considered criminal. Right then, Dorothy demonstrates a translator invented by the scientists that can help establish a common language with the aliens. Nevertheless, Marshall dangles a creeper over the cycler, handing the other end of the rope to Nasha and telling her to hold it with her teeth. Realizing the baby might burn to death, the woman clenches the end of the rope between her teeth. Zeke, seeing what the commander is doing, orders his agent to record everything. Meanwhile, Arkady brings in a new poison gas that Marshall intends to use to wipe out all the creepers, but Ilfa suggests they make it into a competition. Marshall orders both Mickeys to be fitted with explosives, linking their detonators to his wristband. Then Ilfa announces their task, to go outside and collect 100 creeper tails each for her sauces. The one who does it first will survive. The Mickeys are sent outside. Suddenly, Dorothy catches up to them and gives them the unfinished but functioning translator. Using it, Mickey-17 establishes contact with the largest creeper, who turns out to be the main mother. He warns her of the danger, whereupon the mother threatens to annihilate all humans via a sonic attack capable of exploding human brains if they do not return the stolen baby. While the creepers demonstrate a fraction of their power, Mickey-17 signals to Nasha, asking her to take the surviving baby outside. At that moment, Marshall is persuaded to head out in a combat vehicle and personally command the destruction of the monsters so they can film it for historical records. Meanwhile, Mother Creeper demands that Mickey offer a human life in exchange for the life of her lost child. The vehicles exit the ship just as Nasha grabs Ilfa and chokes her with her legs, demanding to be let out of the ship with the creeper. Zeke orders them to comply with her demand, ignoring Ilfa's rage, and reminds her of her husband's recent illegal actions. Outside, the creepers, sensing that their mother is in danger, cluster around her, stacking their bodies to hide her from Marshall and his soldiers. Marshall opens fire, prompting Mickey-18 to catch up to his vehicle and leap onto it. Mickey-17 returns the baby to its mother when his double calls out to him. Mickey-18, fulfilling the requirement of a life for a life, detonates his bomb vest, killing himself and Marshall. 6 months later, Nasha becomes the leader of the colony and calls for abandoning the disposable program. A hitman eventually tracks down Timo, but he manages to beat him in a fight. Dorothy refines the translator, and people learn that although the creepers can strike with ultrasound, Mickey-17 still sometimes has nightmares featuring Ilfo and a reprinted Marshall. But inspired by Mickey-18's example, he chases them away, especially now that the printer has been destroyed, an act entrusted to Mickey-17 himself. This film can be safely recommended to all lovers of unconventional and relevant science fiction. Although it sometimes seems to borrow from certain space masterpieces, it presents its own unique perspective, as Bong Joon-ho has once again created something wild, daring, and entirely outside the usual boundaries.